The name of this artwork or project is Minaminals 2, Earth to Earth, and it is part of a series. These works are ephemeral and made to biodegrade on site. Minaminals is a combination of the word mini and animals. The subtitle is called Earth to Earth, and this was to celebrate the value and importance of our Mother Earth, and more specifically the soil, which is so essential for our survival. The genre of my work, or how I would describe my work, or where it would fit in, would be a combination of sustainable and ephemeral art, and with an influence of concept art, especially dematerialization. And why I would say sustainable art rather than land art, as it was produced with consideration of the wider impact the work has and its reception in relationship to its environment. I wouldn't dream of taking a bulldozer and flattening the whole landscape to create an art piece like some of the land artists used to do. The work is ephemeral as it is short-lived, as it's created from materials that are not supposed to last very long. The bioplastic and sand is made in such a way so it biodegrades again. And then the process of decomposition and nothing being left later on is actually key to this work, to the Minaminal series. So it's not just really the material, but the decomposing part of it, and then it actually becoming sand again. So it's the whole creation, living, death. So from death, life springs again, because as things decompose, it becomes nutrition to the soil again. So the plants and the animals and the bacteria that are part of the earth can use this to grow, and then eventually we benefit from that as well.
Today I'll be installing the bioplastic and sand installation for the Kunst Offen in Hellersdorf, Berlin, and which is also part of the AdFest 2018 Berlin. What we're doing is actually installing these little creatures. They're made out of, as I said already, bioplastic and sand, and then they're squished in a foam basically, and then taken out and dried, and they've got some seed in them as well, but I don't know if the seeds, the wildflower seeds, will actually grow. That is a bit of a experiment, because there's vinegar in the bioplastic and they might actually not grow in it, but we'll see. I'll be installing them here in the old fountain in Hellersdorf, and it's also a partnership with the Projektraum MP43, Carola Rumper. It's an ephemeral artwork, so they will stay here and biodegrade by themselves, so there will be nothing to actually pick up later. So we'll see how long it will take for them to actually biodegrade, and then also if some people need them, put them in their house. Okay, so they're not perfect. It just doesn't happen with the bioplastic and sand, and it also depends on which kind of sand I use. They turn out differently, and I have to adjust the recipe every time. So this one is just normal building sand, which we took from a building site. It comes out quite nicely with the building sand actually. But I'll go get another one and I'll show you how it turns out with actual earth that I bought at the store for planting. So this one is the one that we used the earth from the store for the planting. So it doesn't turn out so nicely, but it's also not sifted. So the detail isn't as strong, and it actually cracks a little bit more. So I assume that these will actually biodegrade much faster than the other ones. There's a bit of mold on it as well, so there are still living beings in here, and even though I did cook the recipe. So I'm hoping that with this earth, the flowers actually that are planted in here, the wildflower seeds, will have a bigger chance to actually grow and then be be part of the process and flower and all that. But we'll see, and I'll take some photos along the way. Okay, so this is the bird, and I did fix it up a little bit. It does have a little bit of detail when you use the building sand, because it's much smoother. Yeah. And because it's two forms, you can actually see the crack. They start cracking along the middle. Because what happens is if the dough actually gets cold or you don't work fast enough, it doesn't stick well enough together. It actually starts binding by itself before you put the two halves together. But yeah, it's part of the process, and the faster you get, the better you get at it. The better they come out. Okay, so this is the snake. These ones have dried quite a bit, so they are much thinner than they were, and that's because of the different sand. And they're part of the first experiment which I did with the sand. Later on I added a bit more, a bit less water and more sand to the mixture, so they don't reduce so much once they dry and the water leaves the snake. Yeah, so they're quite hardy actually. Obviously this one, because it's so thin, it will break if it falls down. It's a bit more delicate than the other structures. Okay, so this is the tortoise. This is the new one, and this one also has a little bit of mold on it as well. It's still wet. I think the mold also comes because we stored it in quite a humid environment, and it was hot, so it's the perfect environment for creatures to live in. And there's actually a little creature walking there. I don't know if you can see it. It obviously likes the environment. Yeah, there it goes. Right, so in here, as I said, there's wildflower seeds, and we'll see over time if they actually grow. And this is it is from the bottom. So what I've later on started doing with the other molds that I'm doing for a different project, for a residency in July, August, is that at the bottom actually isn't realistic, but I produce it in such a way that it's the easiest to install and to make forms of, because you don't really see it once it's installed.
The installation consists of 50 animals, or 50 of the Minaminals, of which there are 4 tortoises, which are around about life size, a mid-sized tortoise, maybe even a large one. Nowadays they don't grow so large anymore. 12 birds, 12 snakes, and 12 snails, and they're all made of bioplastic and sand. And they installed in an old fountain, are about 12 to 25 cubic centimeters in size, and the entire space that I used for the installation itself, where the animals were actually spread quite far apart, as they were created in such a way, or installed in such a way for them to, so it looks like they walk out of the bushes which are in the fountain towards the little wall of the fountain, and then where they would then crawl out of this fountain and into the neighborhood. So the space is about 300 centimeters by 400 centimeters by 50 centimeters. I wasn't able to actually document the work as I was planning to, as it was destroyed after 10 days. It was a bit of a shock when I saw it, because I had so many plans with the work as well to document it, and I was looking forward to see if the seeds would grow once the rain started and all that. It was like a crime scene, and I was following it and documenting the little heads and tails being off, and things being squished. It's interesting that this is probably the real reaction that some work would get in reality. There was another feeling inside me that, of course, I knew that putting something into public space is not giving something or creating a sort of barrier, or like one would have in a gallery or museum or any place where there's a security or where there are certain rules to be followed. So I knew there was a risk that it might be destroyed. or people would actually take some. So it did look like a few were taken, which I actually like very much, because this would remind the people of the work when they look at it, when it's wherever it is. There's the question that just because it's in a gallery, is it then now aesthetic, or is it now valuable? Or is it more valuable than something that's not in a gallery? So there's a very interesting question. Isn't it more valuable outside, where people can actually interact with it? Even if they destroy it, it's also an interaction. It's a message